Hey, what's up? How you doing? Welcome to another video. My name is Ben. This is part 2 of a style of video that I've been doing lately, which is I go through a shoot that I've been on and basically review the photos and see what I do differently. Part 1 of this video is linked up here somewhere. Unfortunately, because the cadence of my videos is about once a month, I once again have new hair. Anyway, so I'm back once again in the northern rivers of New South Wales, town of Lismore, Nightcap National Park, shooting adventure tourism, basically, climbing, hiking, that sort of stuff. And once again, a similar setup, the Sony A1 with the 24-105 on main, and then backing up with a Nikon ZF with a 14-30 just to take wides. But first, we had to take quite a bit of a hike to the location.
For day 2 of this shoot, you've already seen that we're tramping down a hike full of sharp leaves and thorns and carrying a heavy ladder trek from the car park. After getting all the way down through all of that jungle to the bottom of the river, I realized that I had left my Sony camera in my center console of my car and only had brought the Nikon ZF, a supposedly casual retro camera completely unsuitable for professional work. Well, how was an amateur photographer like myself going to make it work? Well, let's see. Took this photo of the river, this boring photo of the river, and contemplated my life choices and why I was such an idiot. And then one of the girls had the idea to paint their face with ochre, which is an Aboriginal practice using the clay from the rocks to paint your face. So I thought that was good, full cultural experience. Well, look, we got bokeh balls in this one. That's always desirable, right?
Straight away you can see the problem, right? The Nikon ZF is not a professional camera. It's a retro styled fun camera for people to basically adapt old Leica lenses and go flash pop people in the face in the streets of New York with. How are you going to use that for a landscape shoot? Well, it's actually kind of simple, really. See, the thing about the Nikon ZF is that whilst it looks like it's all organized around the dials and you're supposed to be basically looking at the scene, taking your best guess while clicking through your exposure dials, you don't actually have to shoot it that way. What you can instead do is flick it into 1/8 of a step, use the regular wheels, which are the same as the Z6 1, 2, 3, and then go from there. Now it's operating the exact same controls as a regular Nikon, and I can also add a grip if that's really a problem, which it isn't.
The other issue I was facing is that I had a bag full of lenses, half of which I could not use, and given this was not actually a tourist part of the national park, all of the river crossings had to be done either this way, by kind of jumping across and hoping you don't slip, or just by bashing through it. Given the river rocks were slippery, and if I was to fall over, it would be game over, drone, batteries, camera, all done. I had to basically be super careful. Catching more, taking fake selfies. That's obviously an important part because that's what people do in parks. This is just to show you the dynamic range of the ZF. So here, trying to use similar sort of settings, but not being quite as successful. As you can see, we've still got a bit of blowout on the water. Just trying to get some interaction between these two, framed in an area, still show the waterfall and look down the river. But these guys had to climb down there and they were sitting a bit awkwardly. The rocks are actually really sharp. This another view of showing how you had to get across the river just by going through this water up to about your knees or over. Here's the instructor showing that he doesn't really care because his gear can get wet. Good for you, mate.
Yeah, just don't let me slip with this camera bag.
Totally.
Really? Alright, I'll give it. I'd be lying if I said this wasn't one of the more physically demanding jobs I've had.
Here he is climbing up without ropes, up something that I would be expected to climb up as well with all my equipment. Really didn't realise getting up in the morning it would be like this, but you make do. See, as you can see, everything's fine. Don't worry.
So we're well into day 2. Well into is in fact, well into in the sense that my feet are wet. I'm wearing a helmet and a harness. We're about to do some abseiling. This has been a hell of a job so far.
Secure safety equipment, quite like this one, safety first. This one is, I included this just basically to show that another confession about how unprofessional I was, is that my 24-70 has fungus on the front element of it, and just a small patch, but as you can see when the light's hitting from the top of the tree there, it does cause a fair bit of flaring. My objective here is to make sure that this climbing experience looks kind of epic and cool and unique, whilst the true factor is that this is not a super impressive or steep slope. First attempt, basically just trying to shoot underneath, trying to position the camera in a low position that makes the wall look steeper than it is. Somewhat successful here, I think. Then from the top, just sort of showing people in their gear. She was quite photogenic with her orange shoes and the orange hat, you know, color-wise it kind of stands, and using AI to clone out my camera bag and her daughter. Just messing around and shooting some of the other people who were stuck at the top waiting for us to have our climbing experience. Fortunately, the model understood the assignment and posed. It looks cool, but it's not a massively steep waterfall, especially from the top here where it looks gentle, in fact. More climbing. I just simply cleaned it up by taking the mum out of the picture. I guess I could have darkened the background to make it even more imposing looking. How do I solve this climbing not looking impressive problem? Well, what I came up with is simply flying the drone into the air and then rotating the camera tilt until it's perpendicular with the face of the rock so it looks vertical as it does here. Trying to get the water in frame, sharp water look that I was trying to look at before, whilst dealing with the dynamic range deficit that you're getting on a drone compared to a regular camera. There I am standing at the top. What I should have done in retrospect is have them climb much closer to the water so I could have framed them in better third. They're at opposite sides of the frame. I've tried to counter that by flying backwards. Perhaps the solution instead is just to Photoshop it so that that whole middle section of the rock has disappeared and the whole composition gets moved closer together. And then just getting some more vertical perspectives of the river itself.
Fucking hell, slipping already. Yeah. Alright, I'll come have a look.
And then we're at the top, and now here I have more regrets. You can probably see that the sun is beating straight from the shadows near their feet. You can see the sun is straight overhead, creating harsh shadows, and very hard to make a shape out of the light. That's the before. What I probably would have done had I not had to ford a deep river here is set up an external flash, right hand side just off frame, and fired it at their backs to counteract the light. I don't know if it would have done much, but it would probably have done more than I've tried to achieve here in masking, or at least had someone else hold a reflector. I don't mind these, but again, I just find that the contrast between the foreground and the background is not enough. And also, as you can see, I've really tried to just expose to not blow out the water in the background, which has meant I've had to bring everything up, and fortunately the dynamic range of the ZF is fantastic. Because he's a bit of a mountain goat, I had him jump over to the rocks and see if he can't get to the waterfall a little bit. I think this shot might have kind of worked if he'd sort of, I don't know, been in swimming togs and stood on top of this ledge over here under the water and kind of showered or jumped in. You're not actually allowed to swim in these water holes.
Bit of an excursion, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately there's no way to get up here that's safe. Like,
then we're climbing back down. Again, these aren't super adventure-y, but it's more just trying to show the gear and use that as a point of contrast with the water and the green background. Try not to make butt shots too gratuitous. I think that works better for this reason. And then, after a fair amount of bush bashing in the opposite direction that was even more hot and tiring, reunited with the crew, took this little shot, and I was finally able to be returned to my Sony. And it was at that point I decided to shoot some mountain biking. Basically, the idea is the sun is coming through this river fjord here. Is it called a fjord? Get the telecompression, obviously dirtying the frame with some bushes in the background. You can see the problem, I think, here is that the bike is like clearly an old POS with V-brakes. Disgusting. And maybe a helmet that wasn't likely full of fleas. Here, trying to get some more compositions where I had the river in the background, and not entirely successful here. Just tried to pick a hole in the trees and snap him as he's coming through the right area. The problem is that the water is reflecting the green of the river, so it's not as contrasty. And here, just going with that entirely and trying to get just lots of foreground and telecompression. which probably is a better shot. Make use of the last light of the day. It was a very shaded area in these trees, and the water was quite cold. You can kind of see it there, but just really directing them to try and smile and have a good time. I'm using a flash off on the shore that's firing from the top left. You can kind of see how it's lighting their faces a bit, and before it's still very keeping it to 125th, and at 1600. Probably could have done the ISO a little bit higher here, but at least I've got some contrast between their faces. And then finally, for the last shot of the day, trying to show this picnic table, you can see there's really nice golden sunlight from the late part of the day hitting through the scene, hitting all elements except for the family in question. And I can't really move the picnic table, so what I did instead was I took a gold reflector, put it up on a light stand, fired a flash at it, and then bounced the gold reflector off their faces. So as you can see, I ended up with a nice, although softer, effect of the evening sun matching the light in the background. And then obviously cloned out some things that people left in the background, and some also selective masking to try and balance out the shadow. But that was the last shot of the day, and so after that I was on my way home, and that ended 2 pretty hard working days.
So one thing I really couldn't fail to notice on this shoot is that I got a lot less variety, and basically it came down to how hard it was to get to some of the locations to shoot. More than half the day was just spent tramping, walking, climbing, scrambling, rearranging gear to be moved around to other places, and that just meant less setup, less variety overall. Now, some masochists and hustle fiends would probably tell you that the harder you work for a shot, the better it is, and I think maybe overall that might not actually be true. Maybe in my heart I feel that the shots were more hard won, but I don't think anyone really cares about that when they're looking at them on the website, which, by the way, is at visitlismore.com, is where you can see a lot of these photos. A lot of them were just done in the name of getting tourism back to the town of Lismore, which was sadly ravaged by floods some years back and is still in the rebuilding process. So yeah, if you like any of those and actually want to go visit the place, I'd be stoked. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, please keep silent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.